going on, everybody? Welcome to a special edition of the Wrestling Junkies podcast. I'm Eric, Mr. Cincinnati Robinson. As always, I am joined by the podcast dad himself, Chris Hoops. Choops, how are you, man?
Doing fantastic. Doing fantastic. It is our time to interview a wrestler. It's our favorite thing. It's at least my favorite thing that we do on this show. But don't let me talk too much. Let's get right into it.
Yes, absolutely. This is one of our favorite parts of this job. Our next guest has wrestled for Beyond, Pro Wrestling Grind, One Up Wrestling, Smash Master Wrestling, High Tension Wrestling, Excite Wrestling as well. The Moonlight Son, Mike Skyros. Mike, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us.
I'm great, guys. Thank you for making time to have me on. I'm really excited to do this.
Of course. Like Chris said, this is one of our favorite things to do since we've started our podcast. Is just getting to talk to wrestlers and just having great conversations. So yeah, let's dive right on into it. On our show, basically, we believe that wrestlers are superheroes, and every superhero has an origin story. So, Mike, tell us about your earliest memories of pro wrestling.
Yeah. So it's a very specific one. I was in Niagara Falls, Canada, when I was a kid, vacationing with my family, and anyone who's been to any of those hotels in like a tourist destination, a lot of times they'll have a loop of different promotional videos and stuff. And because the WWF at the time zone was in town, they would have a video replaying what happened on Raw. And this Raw happened to be the Monday Night Raw, where The Undertaker defended the Undisputed Championship against Jeff Hardy in a ladder match. And I had heard of wrestling before, but when I saw that, I was like, what is this? Like, this is wild. I need to find out more. And I was hooked right from there.
Love that. Love that.
Classic.
I mean, it's an iconic match. Yeah.
It is.
That's awesome. So growing up, you say you started, that's when you first noticed wrestling. But growing up, your favorite wrestler was Ron Simmons. How did that happen? And then how has he kind of influenced your style?
Man, so what I always appreciated about Ron was, and I appreciate it more as I get older, is that whenever he would come to the ring, you knew it was on. Like, you knew someone was getting their ass kicked. He wasn't there to mess around. He wasn't there to do anything to insult the audience. He was there to lay into someone, kick ass. It looked like it was gonna hurt. It probably did hurt. And once I learned more about his life, his story, and caught up on his matches from WCW, from Doom, I became a bigger fan.
Nice. And how did his working style, how has it influenced you in your wrestling career so far?
Yeah, it was funny. When I was young, I was really into high flyers, and I still have an appreciation for that. But once I started wrestling, I realized the type of wrestling that I enjoyed the most, that I try to bring to people, is that kick-ass, no-nonsense, big slams, big hits. Everything is super solid. You can't see through anything that's happening out there. And that's what I thought was his biggest positive attribute in the ring. Absolutely zero BS with that dude. Always hard hitting, and that's what I'm trying to convey in my wrestling.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, speaking of just all around badasses, you also got to sit under the learning tree of Dan Severn. How did that come about, and what are some cool things that you've learned from him that you also apply today?
Man, Dan. First of all, I have to say Dan is one of the nicest people that I have met, both through wrestling and in general. For someone who could kill all of us with his bare hands, yes. he was the most polite, kind, had time for everyone, super respectful. And how that came about, there's a promotion called UPW, Upstate Pro Wrestling, that runs out of the Rochester area. And in 2016, they offered a seminar before one of their events, and it was a camp run by Dan. A lot of people call their seminars. He calls it a camp, and I think that's more accurate based on what he brings to the table. So what his camp entailed was a lot of conditioning, a lot of calisthenics, things like free squats, squat thrusts, Hindu push-ups, things of that nature. If anyone is familiar with those types of exercises, you'll know what I'm talking about. We went through a lot of amateur wrestling techniques that I wasn't familiar with. Unfortunately, I didn't do amateur wrestling growing up, so I have to play catch up on those techniques. But he taught us a few different things out of a waistlock position, out of a over under position, a few different ways to stay in control of our opponents and like a side control, things of that nature. Very specific technical things, but things that I've used ever since then, things that stuck in my head ever since that was almost 8 years ago now.
Wow.
It was a different sort of flavor than what you get with a lot of other people's coaching nowadays, especially.
That good for you, because I'm terrified of that man. So good for you to step into a ring with him.
He's so cool. If you ever get the chance to meet him, if you see him at a convention or anything, an event, anything of that nature, go up and say hello to him. You will not regret it. He's so cool. I took a picture with him and everything.
Nice.
It was great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Again, good for you, man. Getting in the ring with him is probably not on my bucket list.
Yeah. Yeah.
By your estimate, like 96 matches in 2023 is kind of what.
Yeah, it was tough. It was somewhere around there. Yes.
What was and I know this might be a little hard, but what was maybe one that stood out the most for you?
Yeah, if I have to name one, I think in terms of significance was I successfully defended my Excite Heavyweight Championship against who I believe is the #1 independent wrestler going today, and that's Matt Cardona. And that was plus for what he is now, it would be extremely significant because, again, I'm going to state this a few times talking about this. He's #1 undisputed for me in terms of at the top of what we're doing on the independents now. Mm-hmm. But again, when I was a kid, I was a huge fan of Zack Ryder, and I told him that after the match because I didn't want to make things weird. But for 16, 17-year-old me that was watching him like at the top of his game, that was just a really cool moment to be able to be in the ring and to hang with him and to beat him.
Nice.
Yeah, you had to have been had to have pinched yourself a bunch of times after finding out that was going to be the result of that finish. I'm sure.
Can I say three names that I didn't think we would group together today was Ron Simmons, Dan Severn, and Matt Cardona.
Yeah, it's definitely like a weird kind of Bermuda Triangle of the type of wrestling that I'm into. It's funny too because you talked about the nervous feelings, having to pinch myself a little bit. That's a thing. I'm very fortunate that when I was young and breaking in and doing ring crew and helping set up, do security, things of that nature, I was around a lot of big names for the company 2CW that I started with. I was around. Kevin Owens was a regular on our shows. AJ Styles, the Young Bucks, Johnny Gargano. These people were all not like, hey, they came in once. These people were on our shows.
Yeah.
So it helped me because when I get to a moment where I'm wrestling someone like Matt, who's a big star and someone I looked up to, I'm able to bottle those feelings and get through the match and stay out of my own head until afterwards I could be like, hey man, I really looked up to you and all that stuff. But it gave me a lot of valuable experience in that side of it.
For sure. So one of your 2024 goals that you've made known is to make Syracuse wrestling hot, and One Up Wrestling is a new promotion. How did you get involved with them?
So One Up Wrestling is ran and created by a couple gentlemen that I have known since I began in wrestling that have always looked out for me both personally and professionally. And what One Up Wrestling signifies is, I mentioned 2CW before. For people out there that might not be familiar, 2CW is the premier promotion in upstate New York. You heard some of the names that I listed that were a part of these events. And a lot of places can do well audience-wise in their town. 2CW was special in my opinion because they sold out as a touring brand in upstate New York. So we have a very big state. They would go to all corners and sell out and bring fantastic shows to all the people out there. So with One Up, we are trying to not copy what they did, but in terms of being a brand that brings high quality wrestling around a larger area of the state, that's what we're doing. It's Syracuse centric in the sense that it's by Syracuse wrestlers, and we are going to give a platform to all the premier Syracuse wrestlers, including myself, to shine in ways that other places may not or may not have as a priority. But this area is a great wrestling town. It's been a great wrestling town for promotions like the WWE, like WCW, and like 2CW. But ever since 2CW left, there's been a bit of a lull in terms of a show that people can go to more consistently on the independent level, and that's what we're going to be.
What are some of the challenges of working with a startup company that maybe we don't see as fans?
Yeah, it's getting the name out there. So there are a lot of people that are wrestling fans that it's tough for them to give it a chance because they don't know what to expect. Maybe they've been burned by a bad experience at an event in the past, or maybe they feel wrestling isn't there for them, isn't what they want it to be anymore. And we have to, it's like paying rent. Every event, every match on the independent level, I believe you have to knock it out of the park, because I think it takes one bad match, one bad moment to turn off a fan for either a very long time or forever. So the challenge is getting people to come out and stay, because a lot of times you can get people to come out that one time and they're like, oh, cool, that was cool, I saw the wrestling, and then they won't come back. How do we get them to come back, and how do we sustain that standard that we want to set? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Complete sense. So we had initially said that we've grouped up Ron Simmons, Dan Severn, Matt Cardona, as far as names that have been mentioned here. We're gonna throw a couple more in here. Daniel Garcia and Carmelo Hayes. You've named them as some people, as wrestlers that have been transformative in your career. What specifically, working with those guys, have you taken with you, and why was that such an amazing experience for you?
Yeah, so I'll start with Mello, because in order, I wrestled him it was around Halloween of 2015. We wrestled a 35-minute draw, and we never wrestled again. But he is someone that, at that experience, we were around the same amount of time in wrestling, but obviously look at where he is. He's so good, and even at that time, he was so good. And he showed me a lot of things at that level that other people hadn't gotten the chance to show me yet. He led me through that type of match that I had never had before, a long draw like that. And he gave me a lot of confidence in things that I was doing right, because criticism is important. Like, constructive criticism is extremely important to grow, but it is also very reassuring to hear, hey, you're doing this right, keep doing this, keep this. And I thought that's what he brought to the table. And overall, he's just a great dude. Everyone sees what he does in terms of his work, but as a person, he is someone that has remained the same, level-headed, good dude throughout all of his success, and I couldn't be happier for him. In terms of Garcia, I think a lot of the same things apply. I met Danny way farther down the road. He's a lot younger than me. He's been wrestling a lot less time than me, but I recognized instantly that he's very good, and he is someone that, even a few years in when I wrestled him, I was like, this is someone that gets it and someone I can learn from. And it was a similar thing to where I wrestled him. The only time we wrestled was at a studio taping in front of other wrestlers, but it was such a good experience. Like, I could tell he really wanted to kind of push me and see what I was capable of. And he threw a lot at me, like, even more so than I was used to, even with the tenure that I had at that point. But it was such, again, kind of similar to Mello. It was another step where it gave me confidence that, yes, I can hang with someone that good. And again, look at who he's wrestled, look at who he's thrived against on television right now. And to be like, yes, I hung in there and thrived every single bit with a dude that good is very reassuring to what I would end up doing for these past few years.
So
Full
did you
set.
attack Trick?
No comment.
Smart man. Let's look at 2024. You have named one of your
Yes.
dream opponents as Frankie Kazarian. What are the qualities
Yes.
that he possesses that make him want to be one of your dream opponents?
So there's two sets of criteria that I look at. The first is what he's accomplished just at a first glance. He is, I don't like to use the word legend, but he is someone who on the independents really was one of the first people in the late 90s and early 2000s to make a name for himself, even outside of all the great work he did with TNA, Impact, AEW, Ring of Honor. He's had such a good career of solid work and changing with the times. But he is really one of those first wave of guys to make a name for himself in a time and place where it was very, very, very difficult to make a name for yourself on that level. And then secondly, I am a part of the Killer Kowalski family tree of wrestling. So you have Killer Kowalski, you have the variety of people that he's trained, and then you have the people that they have trained. Killer Kowalski trained Zachary Springate. Zachary Springate trained me. Zach and Frankie were classmates at Kowalski's, and Frankie is a premier wrestler out of that family tree, and I want to test myself against him and see how I stack up.
Love that.
Wow.
Love that. We'd hopefully we'll be able to see that this year. I mean,
He said 2024. I tweeted at him. He said 2024. So I'm really trying to keep that alive. Yes.
There you go. Manifestation. That's the way to go. As we kind of get to the end here, you'd mentioned earlier, paying your dues, rent's due every single day. What's some advice that you give to a newer or aspiring wrestler, about paying dues, but also knowing their value as a performer in this business?
Yeah. So anytime that I speak, like in a sense of like giving advice or coaching or just helping out where I can, I always preface it this way. I mean, I haven't been on TV. I don't make millions of dollars at wrestling. I'm not a superstar. I'm not anyone special. I am just someone who has been able to work consistently in wrestling and work consistently in quality places against quality opponents and build a reputation based off of that on the independents. What I will say is that's helped me is availability, saying yes to doing things, even if a lot of times things will scare me. I'm unsure about things. I'm unsure about going to a new promotion or wrestling this person or doing a promotional video this way or going to meet so-and-so to do an interview. Like, there is so much uncertainty in wrestling, but the more I've said yes, the more I've just said, F it, let's throw it to the wind. Let's see what happens in different situations. It's helped me. Also, not to get a big head, again, we're all in the independents. If I'm on WWE and I'm making tons of money and I'm at the very top, I get where the ego comes from. But I am, and we are absolutely no better than anyone else. We're all in the same locker room. We all are in the same promotion. So I just say treat everyone. You don't have to kiss ass. You don't have to glad hand anyone, but treat everyone with respect and kindness, and carry yourself like a professional. And those things have carried me the farthest.
That's great
Well
advice.
said.
Yeah, great advice. All right, Mike, I need you to help me settle a debate that we have on this show.
Let's go.
We have a running count. Mr. WrestleMania, Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker. Who is it?
Mm-hmm. That's really tough. I'm an Undertaker guy through and through, but I will say if you look at just the pure quantity of great matches that he's had, I think Shawn has more. I would have to give it to Shawn.
Thank you.
Man,
Thank
it's just
you.
like the
Thank
third
you.
time in a row everybody said, I love The Undertaker, but, come on, man.
Well,
you had it.
let me rationalize it. So Undertaker had many great matches, but a lot of them came within a time period of probably like 6-7 years.
Yeah.
Shawn's WrestleMania matches were incredible from the beginning all the way to the end. I have a hard time thinking of any duds that may fall in there. And even it's too high of a benchmark. Like he hit a grand slam every single time.
You sold it great. I still think you're wrong, but that's fine. No,
that's okay. You're entitled to your opinion.
No, and that's another win for Eric. So we'll chalk that up on the board. But hey, this is a debate that will rage on. So
yes. So we have spent the last 20 minutes talking about Mike Skyros. We want you to take this time now. Who are some names on the indies that we should be paying attention to, or our listeners? If we haven't heard of them yet, who should we be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I just talked to this person today too. There's a guy out of New York. He just rebranded. You can find him at Himi Hendrix, Himi Hendrix, like Jimmy. Oh, I think what he's doing, he's taking a lot of risks with his presentation and his promotional videos, and I think it's really cool, and I really admire someone who is able to step up and take risks to present themselves and do it in a cool way. I will also say there's a guy out of my area named Corey Jackson who I think once people see him, people connect with this dude instantly. He's just got charisma coming out like of every pore on his body. He doesn't even have to do anything special. It's just him. I would look him up. And then I'll give you one last one. There is a gentleman out of, he's starting to get his shine a little bit now, but I still think he is, I hate to use this term, but underrated in terms of how good he is. We don't always see eye to eye professionally, but this dude, Joseph Alexander, I think he's going to go as far as he wants to go. I think he's incredible, and he is someone A-game, as a lot of people call him. I've been in the ring with him a few times, and for his experience level, only a few years in, incredible. I think you will see him contracted within the next 5 years.
Wow,
good names. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
No, so people for us to look out.
I'll recap. Himi Hendrix, Corey Jackson, A-game Joseph Alexander. Look those three up. You will not be disappointed.
Okay.
Well, we will.
Strong recommendations there. Yeah.
Real quick before I'm gonna take it another way. Eric, hold on. Real quick before we get into the socials and everything, I have to ask: the axe on the wall. What's the story behind that?
That was a gift. My buddy thought I needed an axe, and
all right.
Far be it from me to turn down a free gift. So,
okay,
it may or may not have gotten some use.
Okay, all right. I've just been staring at it the whole time, like, man.
Yeah.
He's got an axe on the wall. He's trained with Dan Severn. He's from Killer Kowalski School. I'm terrified of this man.
Just don't break into my house. We're cool.
Hey, you're not gonna get any argument from me. Where can everybody find you on socials?
Yeah, I'm really easy to find. I'm at Mike Skyros, MikeSkyros on everything, and that is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm not going to call it X, it's Twitter, TikTok. Yep. And then if you want to buy merch, I'm going to be putting out a video soon to explain more in depth, but I'm prioritizing my Pro Wrestling Tees store in terms of uploading more designs. So if you go on prowrestlingtees.com/Mike Skyros, I just uploaded a new design about a week and a half ago. So find my merch through there. But if you catch me at a show, I will have more non-t-shirt items that I'm bringing to the table, literally.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, Mike, thank you again for joining us. This was a great conversation. We certainly hope to have you back on the show. Best of luck in 2024. Here's hoping that you get that dream match with Frankie Kazarian, man.
Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, no problem. For Mike Skyros and the podcast dad, I'm Mr. Cincinnati. This has been a special episode of the Wrestling Junkies podcast. We'll talk to you guys soon.